Now out in cinemas is The Mandalorian and Grogu, which transports the popular TV show to the big screen. Directed by Jon Favreau and produced for $165 million. The series originally aired on Disney Plus in 2019 and spawned 2 more seasons and a spin-off show with the Book of Boba Fett. The show proved very popular, and Grogu, which many referred to as Baby Yoda early on, became a standout character, and many were desperate to get their hands on the toy based on him. The later series and the spin-off show didn't quite match the quality of the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian, but showrunner Jon Favreau was planning a 4th season. There were talks of a movie, but they weren't in any rush to pursue that idea. With the script finished for the 4th season and plans to shoot in February of 2023, this would be delayed by the Hollywood labor disputes, so Lucasfilm re-evaluated their plans for the franchise and decided to prioritize a Mandalorian film instead, and announced The Mandalorian and Grogu in January of 2024. Favreau said the film story is less reliant on material from the previous seasons to accommodate audiences who had not watched the series, but the film would open with some text to bring people up to date. When you watch it, it's like the opening of Superman Returns. Principal photography began in June of 2024 in California, and they shot for 92 days, with David Klein returning as the cinematographer from the 3rd season of The Mandalorian, and co-writer Dave Filoni directing the 2nd unit. Around 49 minutes of the film were filmed in a full-frame IMAX ratio. The reviews from the press so far have been mixed, with Empire awarding it 3 out of 5, saying the first Star Wars film in nearly a decade doesn't shake up the formula, instead it's a lively, if inessential, extended episode of the series. But Mando remains cool and Grogu remains cute. Peter Bradshaw of The Guardian said, "There isn't enough of the humanity, humour and extravagant space melodrama which has made and continues to make Star Wars lovable." The Hollywood Reporter said it feels stubbornly small in its relatively inconsequential storyline and themes. For the film's story, we find Mando and Grogu working for the New Republic to hunt down Imperial warlords, and after a successful mission, they are tasked by Ward, played by Sigourney Weaver, to find a mysterious warlord coin. The New Republic has been tipped off to the whereabouts by the Hutt twins, the siblings and successors to Jabba the Hutt, but they will only exchange the information to the New Republic if the Mandalorian rescues Jabba's son and heir Rotter the Hutt from a criminal syndicate run by Lord Yanu. As prepayment, Ward gives the Mandalorian a new Razor Crest. The hype and excitement for The Mandalorian and Grogu seems pretty much non-existent from what I observed online. There hasn't been a Star Wars film since 2019, with the highly disappointing Rise of Skywalker killing off Disney's ambitions to pursue any more live-action movies, so Disney pivoted to producing TV shows, which were met with mixed results, with The Mandalorian and Andor turning out to be fan favourites from the batch of shows they put out. So focusing on The Mandalorian as a feature film made sense, and perhaps an easy win for Disney. But as the Star Wars franchise and the output being met with mixed reviews as of late, and in some cases with audience backlash, with The Acolyte being the prime target, there does seem to be a lack of interest in Star Wars in general at the moment. So is The Mandalorian and Grogu any good? Well, it's just fine, but nothing special, which is really unfortunate. We have a great director at the helm with Jon Favreau. The TV show was really good and I was invested in the 2 characters and their journey, but the film doesn't really do much to expand on their story. It feels like a one-off adventure for the pair that in one hand is designed to play to audiences that aren't familiar with the TV show, but also has to entertain those who are, and that results in a movie that doesn't really cater for both. As the Disney Plus series had high production values, transitioning to the big screen there isn't much of a leap in terms of quality and what you see on screen. Yes, the action scenes and scope of the locations has increased in scale thanks to a larger visual effects budget, but the meat of it feels like you are watching a feature-length episode of the show. Years ago, if a TV show made the move to the big screen, you would see a massive leap in quality, but now as TV productions match the quality of film with the popularity of streaming and film studios focusing more heavily on that to generate revenue, the difference between TV and film has been blurred. The film's biggest issue for me was the runtime and thin plot. At just over 2 hours long, there just isn't enough story there to justify its length. I looked at my watch a couple of times and it really dragged in places, and I struggled to keep engaged throughout. If it had a bit more story, the runtime would have been fine, but there just wasn't enough there, and you could easily trim out 20 minutes. They had already written season 4 of The Mandalorian. I'm not sure if they took ideas from that, or just left it alone and created an entirely new script. But it seems perhaps their best ideas were put into season 4, and they scrambled to come up with something fresh for the feature film, and didn't want to risk messing with any future seasons. With Dave Filoni involved, there is obvious fan service thrown in with Zeb from the Star Wars Rebels cartoon from 2014. I never saw that show, and the film makes no attempts to properly introduce him. He's just there for the fans to say, "Hey look, it's him." As featured in the trailers, we see Rotter the Hutt battling these other monsters, which are taken from the original Star Wars film, which were featured as part of the board game on the Millennium Falcon, which again is more fan service, but this sequence didn't particularly bother me, and it was a moment for the filmmakers to have some fun with nods to the original 1977 film, which is totally fine with me. I'm always happy to see Sigourney Weaver on screen. She's an amazing actress, and it's nice to see her pop up in the Star Wars franchise, but unfortunately she is given this thankless role that does nothing to flex her acting chops. She does seem a bit disinterested, and her performance lacks energy. Pedro Pascal as Mando is doubled throughout most of the movie and only appears as himself when his helmet is removed. For those moments where he has to act, he doesn't really say much and just has to react to a CG monster attacking him, so an easy payday for him. As the plot is pretty thin, they pad it out with a lot of long-winded action scenes. The opening sequence with the Imperial Warlord escaping in an Imperial Walker is a great set piece, and it gets your hopes high for the rest of the film, but after that it doesn't quite hit the heights of its opening act. As the Mandalorian is battling mostly alien creatures and monsters, it just becomes a CGI slugfest, and it gets a bit tiring after a while as you're just watching CG animated characters punch and throw each other around. I've seen so many action films over the years, you have to really do something interesting to keep me engaged. Once you've seen some proper fight porn in a Hong Kong action movie, or The Raid, or a Scott Adkins film for that matter, watching CG action scenes doesn't do anything for me. The Mandalorian show and even the other Disney Plus shows always had issues with scenes set at night or interior scenes with limited lighting. It's become increasingly difficult to see what's going on. Even on the big screen there were fight scenes where you can't see what's happening. Please stop with this style of lighting, Disney, because it drives me nuts. I can't be the only person frustrated with these attempts to replicate realistic lighting methods, which results in the audience being unable to see what the hell is going on. The highlight of the film for me was the score by Ludwig Göransson, who returns to the franchise after he composed for the first 2 seasons and provided themes for the third. It's very different to John Williams' work in many areas, but also sounds like it fits perfectly in that world. The main theme for Mandalorian has vibes of a late 70s or early 80s TV show, so it fits wonderfully with that period when Star Wars first arrived. Ludwig also throws in these electronic cues that are used when the Mandalorian is searching for information on Rotter the Hutt, in this city which is basically a slightly cleaner version of Blade Runner. Also, Ludwig is no slouch when it comes to writing music for the action scenes, really impressive cues with bombastic percussion. For film score fans, I think this soundtrack is definitely worth seeking out. So yeah, overall the film was a bit of a letdown. It's perfectly watchable though, and I'm sure some Star Wars fans will enjoy it. It does drag a little bit in areas, and if you are taking young kids to see it, they may start getting fidgety as the pace becomes a bit of a slog in areas. If you were desperate to see how Mando and Grogu evolve their friendship, it doesn't really offer much. Grogu gets to fend for himself in the third act, as he has to solve a problem, which is a nice moment for character development. There is humour in places that work, which comes from Grogu interacting with others, and he is still very cute. But it sadly continues that trend of Star Wars feature films failing to hit the mark. The film could have been improved with a tighter pace and throwing in some new ideas, but sadly they played it too safe, resulting in a forgettable outing for The Mandalorian and Grogu. Hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to click the like button and hit the bell to be notified of my latest reviews. Big thanks to my patrons and YouTube members for supporting the channel. If you want to get involved and gain access to exclusive videos and take part in Q&As, follow the link below.